You can't have success without hard work and dedication, said every successful person we've ever come to know. And it's true. As the clock continues to tick, our obligations lengthen and the days become a bit shorter. What speaks of our heart are the goals we remain committed to. How much of what we are devoting our time to describes who we are as partners, as parents, as a friend, as someone's son or someone's daughter. How can we better manage our time to avoid fully being consumed with our work, to create a better work-life balance and still accomplish the goals we set out to achieve? Let's discuss. Today, we welcome the music, mind, and perspective of Rochester, New York, original singer-songwriter Kelly Izzo Shapiro, and guest business professional and entrepreneur Molly McDonald of Michigan's The Pink Fund. I'm Amanda Ashley, and this is episode 67, Dedication. Welcome to Afternoon Cocktail. And introducing to you the wonderful Miss Kelly Izzo Shapiro. Hi, Kelly.
Hi.
Thanks so much for being on our show. What are you going to perform for us?
So the song I'm going to start out with is a song called Lunar Eclipse, and it's sort of about when I wrote it about being sick. I was sick throughout college, kind of like chronically. So it's about being sick and sort of not knowing how to like tell the people that you care about, and also sort of like pulling away from the people that you care about because you're afraid of hurting them. So this is Lunar Eclipse. If I weren't so damn stubborn, if I let you discover what I know now, when I had time, I rinse off my face quickly in the kitchen sink. You stand singing in the shower, a cry above the steam. Is it wrong to try? Shadows align, but I'm only a lunar eclipse. Blink of an eye. I should go. Would have planned this out better if I thought I could weather, but I'm frail as a feather and I don't have time. Is it wrong to try? Shadows align, but I'm only a lunar eclipse. Blink of an eye. I should go, I guess. I should go, I guess. I should go. I should go.
So beautiful, Kelly.
Thank you.
Kelly, can you tell us a little bit more about, what you had suffered through? So you said you had an illness. Is this something you've overcome?
For the most part, I have a blend of problems that were going on in college that ultimately I was able to control with like limiting some certain foods from my diet, which has been really great because all throughout college I had just terrible digestive problems. I was sick all the time and I lost a ton of weight for like mystery reasons. So I was really fragile and kind of frail, and so throughout that whole time I sort of found myself like going back and forth with like, am I gonna like make it through college? Am I gonna be able to even just finish college? Do I need to go home? And I was able to finish my 4 years, and now after kind of like seeing a lot of different doctors and sort of figuring out, what was causing me all of that trouble. Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. I gained the weight back, and it's really like it put a lot of stuff in perspective though, because like I went through something pretty harrowing kind of young. So like now I feel like I have a lot of I have like a good like optimistic outlook about like stuff. Like I feel like you can overcome like really tough things and come out like better if you just sort of give it time.
Yeah.
So that's sort of been a cyclical pattern in my life.
That's an awesome thing to, gaining any perspective like that is really a blessing. Like it's like the silver lining of something that caused you some pain. But so you went to college at SUNY Purchase, right?
Yeah, yeah. I got to study studio composition, which was amazing. It's just like pop songwriting, and yeah, it was a really fun experience.
So much fun. Did you learn a lot about like the business end of things? Like did you have to study that or like minor in business in some way?
We had some classes that we had to take. We had like what they called viral marketing class, which was all like online sort of focused, and then we had a couple of like business of music type classes. But for the most part, it was about like the craft of songwriting, melody writing, lyric writing, and we had a lot of. My major was only 8 people, so like we had a lot of classes that were just the 8 of us sort of like sitting there and playing for each other and giving each other like feedback in a really kind of intimate setting. And those were like the sessions I think I benefited the most from, you know.
Sure, so interesting. Now, do you come your mother is a vocalist as well, right?
Yeah, yeah. My mom taught voice lessons for most of the time as I was growing up. She sings kind of like opera, very classical, beautiful, like soprano voice.
Does anybody else write like you do in your family?
My dad writes poetry, so I think like that's always come really naturally to me. And I started actually writing poetry, and it sort of like was an easy transition to lyrics because I've always loved music and I love to sing. Like I've been singing since I was just little. So I think having those two things in my life, like my dad writing poetry and like introducing me to that kind of world, and then my mom always having like voice students around or just always singing, I think that was like, the that was like a good blend for me.
Sure. Do you have any siblings?
I have a sister, Danny. Yeah.
Is Danny also involved in music or is she like the
She
polar opposite?
sings, she plays ukulele. She's an amazing dancer, too. And she ended up studying theater and dance. So we both kind of went into the performance world in college.
Sure. So much art built into your household. I mean, what type of music filled the walls of your home?
Uh, a lot of different types. Some of my earliest memories of like what we were listening to in my house were like ranged from listening to like very traditional like Irish folk music to Tom Petty or the Beatles. Joni Mitchell has been a huge influence on me forever. Um, but like my dad would also play like chants, like Gregorian chant on Halloween and stuff. Like we just always had like a big variety of stuff, jazz, everything. Yeah, and I still listen to a pretty eclectic uh, array of stuff.
Yeah, and that's what makes you probably such an excellent. I mean, you're such an excellent songwriter, and I mean, going into like the theme of today, dedication, like I am so impressed with how dedicated you are to writing. Just being a writer, between writing, and producing musical productions, to keeping a catalog of songs that's unbelievable. You've written about 3,000 songs, right? And your challenges, I see your challenges to yourself, which I admire. A song a day you were doing for a long time. I mean, how do you keep yourself so disciplined?
um, well, it's actually 4,000 songs now.
Yeah.
um, well, I think like I've always had a personality where I like routines. So I kind of like set myself a time to write, and I just decide I'm going to do it, and I do it. And it's not about like making the perfect song every day, or you know even even writing something you like. It's just I force myself to come to my like workstation, you know try to write something, try to complete something, and then if it stinks and no one ever hears it, that's also fine. But you can always go back to those thoughts, and like it's just a great way to sort of catalog your daily experience. Even though a lot of my songs aren't totally just about me, or some of them are just completely stories about things I've made up in my head or things I've heard about, but you're still putting down like where your frame of mind was that day. And and once you get into that habit, it's sort of like if I don't write, I feel like I've lost that day a little bit. Like I don't have a like a journal entry for that day. And um so it became like an easy habit for me, because really it really makes me feel better, like once I'm done, you know?
Do you think writing that much brings on like an awareness of yourself that maybe had you not had your writing to fall back on, you think you'd be less self-aware?
Maybe. I've never really thought about it that way, but I definitely know myself pretty intimately, I think. And I'm very I'm comfortable being vulnerable, which I think is definitely due to the amount of writing that I've done. Because I think in high school and stuff, when I would go through difficult things, I'd kind of like close off about it. And now I'm very vocal about stuff that I've gone through, or like I really encourage people to kind of like reach out to me if they want to talk. Like I try to be pretty open, and I think that is definitely due to just pouring my thoughts out every day, and sort of just realizing that like your thoughts are legitimate, and like what you feel is legitimate. And even if you don't feel great about what you're feeling, like if you feel like what you're feeling is like maybe not a great thing to feel, like jealousy or whatever, it's still valid, and putting it out there um, is better than keeping it in.
How do you think that song one of 4,000, of 4,000, how does song one from song 4,000 differ? Like stylistically, like how do you feel, like how do you perceive like your evolution of music? Like how have you grown as a writer?
Well, my first song was called Soldier's Wife, and I was 14 when I wrote it. So, of course, I knew a lot about being a soldier's wife at that point. um, so I think it was kind of folky, very much like in the style of sort of like folk stuff that I was listening to, Joni and all of that. And I think now um, my songs tend to be a little bit more introspective and realistic. And I think like that's still a good song. Soldier's Wife is still a decent song, but I think I've matured a lot. I've come into my own, and I've kind of developed my own sound, like how I play the guitar. Um, and how I approach the guitar, especially, has changed from the very beginning, where I was sort of clunking through, C, G, F, chords, and now it's sort of like an exploration, and I try to approach it from a more like bass and melody standpoint. So the way that I think about melody has changed a bit, but yeah, I think more it's just like a maturity. Like when you're 14, you think you know more than you know,
Oh
and
yeah.
probably at 30, I think I know more than I know too. But maybe I know more than I did when I was 14.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. I would hope you did. You know, going back to that vulnerability, I mean, talking about like when you in your beginning days of writing, you know, like I know as a songwriter and coaching songwriter to some younger kids, a lot of the things that people struggle with is, you know, what they're writing about and how that comes off to the listener. They don't they fear being hurtful to somebody if like the song is about somebody close to them, or they fear disclosing too much information about themselves, and they're disclosing some feelings that might be hard to voice normally. So now that you've grown and you've experienced and you know you're okay with being vulnerable, were you like that early on?
I think I was less like that early on. I think I wrote a lot more. The songs I wrote early on tended to be very story based, story songs, character songs, and I still do a lot of like character work where I try to get into somebody else's head and write from that perspective. But I think now I'm a little bit more willing to explore sort of the uncomfortable feelings more, and like you said, if you're worried about writing a song about someone's experience or about how you're feeling and someone might pick up on that and know, and you're afraid about putting that out there, I think like people also like you have to also like be able to talk to people about your songs not necessarily being like 100% true, like true to your life, and that you're using an experience to sort of convey a universal message. So like if you feel like, oh, if I put this out there and say that I like this person in a song or something like that, I feel like that's what like a young kid might like worry about. It's sort of like you don't have to maybe worry about it being so personal to that person. Just like put it out there because everyone has felt like they've had a crush and they don't want to like talk about it. And I think like the more sort of like people can put those hard feelings out there, the more like people who listen to them will feel comfortable in their life, maybe talking to someone, or just feeling comfortable with the fact that they're feeling uncomfortable.
Yeah, sure. How do you keep track of all this writing that you do? I mean, like, do you record each song that you write and then kind of just archive it somewhere? Like,
Yeah, so I have a pretty deep iTunes playlist of songs, and I have a lot of just hard copy like music sheets, written on lined paper that's all wrinkled now, and just boxes and boxes in my basement and my parents' house.
yeah,
So, I mean, because I write on paper, I have a thing about like writing in pen, and not like scratching things out, just writing. If you make amends to what you've written, like writing your changes above it or below it, and sort of leaving your scraps there so that you can see where you were. So everything that I have is like hard copy. I don't do anything from typing because it just isn't. I need the like tactile experience. So yeah, there's a lot of like paper in my house.
and I'm the same way with when it comes to writing. Something about holding a pen and writing on a sheet of paper in a book, like it makes it easier for everything to flow than it does in like I can never just type. Like I'll like sometimes like message or email myself an idea if like I'm in a place where I don't have that book, but I can never just write like on you know, typing wise. It's weird.
Yeah.
Um, let's talk about your musicals. You've written two musicals and you have a third kind of, it's in the works. Is
Hmm.
that still true?
Yep. Yep. The third, I was hoping to put together for Fringe this summer, but then COVID happened. So we're, maybe next summer, maybe the summer after that, just depending on the world. But I do have a really good team assembled for that. And that one is all about, it's all these songs that I had written based on pieces of art by Rene Magritte, the surrealist painter. So it's very abstract and sort of deals with the idea of like how the viewer like looks at a piece of art or interprets a piece of art, like how each person who looks at a piece of art can take something away different from it. So it's kind of conceptual, but the music I think is really beautiful, and I have like a really great arranger. I'm working with Sarah Ada on that, and had some
I
really
love Sarah.
everyone
Yeah,
loves Sarah. Shout out to Sarah.
Sarah's a good girl. Sarah's a afternoon cocktail alum, so yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Shout outs to Sarah.
Yeah. So that's the one I'm working on currently. And then I had two others that I've done productions of. One of them is kind of for a younger audience, and it's sort of like a mashup of Cinderella and the Emperor's New Clothes. And that one's really
Okay.
fun. That was a ton of fun to write and work on the music for that because it's a lot more goofy and upbeat. And then I have another one that's called Alice Unraveled, and that musical is about a teenage girl who is sexually assaulted and sort of spirals into this sort of childhood fantasy land of Alice in Wonderland, and like that's how she sort of processes this difficult experience that she's had. So that one's much darker, and that one actually did get a staged reading at the New York Musical Theater Festival in 2013. So that one I did take to the big city in some ways.
That's pretty amazing. What was it like to see your production come to life like that?
Oh, it's really cool. My favorite part is like not having to be involved anymore. Like writing it and then just like sitting in the audience and seeing it interpreted is it's really unreal. Totally different than performing. Like I
Yeah.
get way more nervous to like watch something I've written than perform something that I'm performing. Just because you have no control. Once you're an audience member, you have no control. So, but it was a just incredible experience.
Is that something you see yourself doing more of and kind of aiming your focus towards in the future?
Um, Maybe. I lived in New York for a couple of years, and it just the vibe of the city isn't really for me. Um, I learned a ton, and I had like good experiences, and I met some people that I will be friends with for my whole life. But I guess I sort of feel like I love Rochester so much that I totally would be completely content just like putting my shows up here, or like around or doing like small tours of places like this because I don't know, we just have a great community of artists and musicians and actors and dancers, and um, I feel like moving back to Rochester, like after I had lived in Manhattan for a couple of years, was like the best decision I've made. Like coming back home, and um, I just feel like so much more productive now um, and happier. So, so I don't know if I never
Good.
want to go back. Unless somebody wanted to like fly me and they were just going to do my show and I was going to watch.
Hey, that's a possibility.
Yeah, that would be
I
great.
believe
I
it
would
could
say I would
happen.
do that.
Well, I hope you do get to do that someday. And I'd love to see one of your productions. I think that's amazing. I imagine you have to be in a completely different headspace to write for something like that than to just sit down and write a song. Am I incorrect?
Yeah, it's for the way that I kind of approach it is um, I sort of feel like songs that I tend to write, my daily songs, are usually influenced by like something I've picked up recently, right? In my sort of like ether or whatever. Um, and with a musical, what I try to do is sort of live in that headspace kind of subconsciously, um,
Mm.
so that I can turn that on pretty quickly when I want to go sit down and write for a character. So I try to think about the characters or like go through the script or like when I was writing the Alice in Wonderland one, I was reading the Lewis Carroll book, and so that was all just like in my mental space. And but yeah, you definitely have to like craft it a little bit more because there are things you have to include for like the plot to move forward. So it's kind of a fun puzzle. to give yourself those restrictions and have to work within them.
Sure. Very cool. I mean, I have to say this, and I hate to bring up something so heavy, but I admire your courage and bravery to speak so candidly about infertility and just issues with infertility and having had miscarried. It's definitely, it's apparent that it's been a very big part of your struggles at these times, and you've actually dedicated a whole album to it, where you've written a song a day for your baby. Can you tell us a little bit about that, and maybe what advice you would lend to someone who is experiencing the same heartache?
Yeah. Um, yeah, that was the hardest thing I've ever experienced. And I think for me, putting those songs out there and writing those was really, really beneficial in my grieving process. And I think something that I would tell people who are dealing with difficult with loss or infertility or miscarriages or anything like that, or any kind of loss really, is to allow yourself to feel everything that you're feeling and to grieve and to take the time that you need to grieve and not put like a limit on it. You know, don't like because I think people think about grieving with like the end goal
And
of getting over it, right? And you never like lose these things completely. So you have to just sort of know that you need to give yourself a little space and be kind to yourself. And I also think that, you know, with my situation, my daughter would have been really sick if she had been born. And I had the feelings of loss and sadness, which clearly I have right now. But I also felt a little bit of relief, and that was a really hard thing for me to deal with, you know, because I didn't want her to struggle. So I think allowing yourself to have the range of emotions of sadness, relief, anger, whatever you're feeling is valid. And don't be afraid to talk about it, because when I came out and talked about what I had gone through, so many people got back to me and were so kind and had gone through similar things, but maybe didn't, didn't feel like they could, didn't want to bring people down or didn't want to talk about it. And I think it's really important to be be open to let your emotions out, because if you don't, you're gonna choke on them, you know?
I think so many people could relate to your struggles and what you're feeling, and you putting it out there the way you have, and channeling it creatively is a beautiful way to to just show you're channeling so much strength, not only for you but for other people, and for those people that are afraid to talk about it. So kudos to you, Kelly. I'm sorry that you're going through that hurt, but you're amazing.
Oh, thank you.
You really
And
are.
I have songs for her, and I have a way to kind of encapsulate how much I loved her. So it's good. It's good ultimately. It
Definitely.
gets easier.
Kelly, where can our audience learn more about you and hear all your beautiful works?
Well, I have a website which is sort of like the hub, links to all my other stuff, and it's just kellyizzoshapiro.com. So if anybody wants to hear more, there's tons of music. There's some fun children's illustrations I've done. There's just lots of cool stuff on there, and also feel free to reach out to me through that platform and contact me. I'm really open to chatting. So yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Kelly, so much for sharing you and your music with us. It's
Thank
awesome having you.
thank you.
You're welcome. I have the pleasure of welcoming Molly McDonald all the way out in Michigan. Molly, how's it going?
Okay.
There you
Can
are.
can you see me?
I could see you. I could hear you.
Okay. Well, it's a beautiful day here in Michigan. It's about 70 degrees, and I just went on a bike ride with my 7.5-year-old granddaughter
Oh, I love it.
between
Yeah.
virtual schooling. So,
Get some fresh air while you
yes.
can.
hmm
It gets pretty cold out there where you are around this time, doesn't it?
A lot like Rochester, New York, where Kelly's from. Yes,
Yeah.
very
Yeah,
cold.
that
Mhm.
Well, Molly, could you share a little bit about you? I mean, share with our audience about you and tell us about the Pink Fund.
So I could spend hours telling you my backstory, but I think the essential part is that um, I had been through a financially devastating divorce with 5 young children, 4 to 13, and had to leave my husband um, and go back to work. I'd been out of the workforce 12 years, and the world had changed dramatically in terms of how work products were delivered. And I needed to make all the money to support us. So I segued my career from marketing and journalism into sales. And at a time of job transition, very confident that I was going to be making a very nice salary with a car and health insurance. I took the time between the two jobs to have my annual mammogram, and I had no family history of breast cancer, never a call back on the mammogram, and never a lump or a bump on a self exam. So I had a surprise, no fooling, April 1st, 2005, breast cancer diagnosis of early stage disease, the earliest stage, which is known as DCIS, ductal carcinoma in situ. And it was not going to take my life, but it took my livelihood. So without my income and the addition of a COBRA premium of $1,300 a month to have health insurance for myself and my family, I found myself in a space known as cancer-related financial toxicity. And that financial toxicity really trumped the cancer diagnosis in my mind. And within 3 months, our home was in foreclosure. And Ford Credit was calling me every 58 days, wondering if I would plan to make a payment on my vehicle, or should they plan to repossess my car. And at the end of my treatment, when people stopped delivering food, I'm in line in the basement of a church pantry for a food bank. And the irony is that my former life, I was a 1%er, and I had my groceries delivered from small private grocers. But that summer, while I was in treatment, I met a lot of other working women in the waiting rooms who were on much more toxic treatment protocols, longer treatment protocols. They were afraid that their FMLA benefit would not outlast their treatment, that they would actually end up permanently unemployed. And they were making very serious decisions about whether to sell their home, bring their kids home from college, liquidate an IRA, pay the penalties, and in the most egregious of cases, stop treatment and go back to work. And that's when I had an epiphany about, well, if I can't get help, because there was no help out there to pay a non-medical bill, maybe I should give help. And so together with my new husband, we launched an organization called the Pink Fund, which does one very simple thing. We pay up to 90 days of non-medical, non-negotiable bill payments directly to patients' creditors for housing, transportation, utilities, and insurance.
Amazing. So I heard about you. I was just telling you this before we got on camera, but I was on my way to a wedding a few weeks ago in New Jersey. Some good friends of Beau and I got married, and we were in an Uber. And I was listening to just the ads, and then all of a sudden, an ad for the Pink Fund came up, and I like grabbed my phone and I like emailed myself real quick because I was like, this sounds like an incredible cause that I'd really like to look into. It blows my mind how, how crippling. I mean, it's one thing how crippling having an illness can, bring to your life, and how that is crippling on its own. But then the financial part of it, it's true, where some people really are forced with the decision of either, you know, just living it out for as long as they can up until they can't, because they can't afford these medical bills. I mean, it's crazy. Today's theme is dedication, and I mean, it obviously takes a sincere amount of dedication to see your mission through and to keep your mission alive. What does the word dedication mean to you, and how detrimental has it been towards the success of your non-for-profit?
Well, there was a period of time when I wanted to stop the show, so to speak, because I was having challenges with our initial board of directors. where there was a bit of a power struggle. And my husband said to me, well, you can stop, you can give this up. But he said two things. He said, the women are counting on you. And if you can't handle this problem, then you're not the right person to lead the organization. So step aside. Well, that ticked me off. So I'm like, no, I am the right person. And that's the interesting thing about challenges and dedication, is that if you truly believe in the work that you're doing and the important mission that we know provides not only financial support to families, but real hope. And I'll read a quote later that we received some last Saturday, actually, from a woman who sent us an email. Thank you. But you have to be in it for the long haul. And we bootstrapped this thing. I didn't have any money. I traded a kitchen table, a Sarin and mid-century modern design from my former wealthier lifestyle for our heart and ribbon logo, which you can see here. We had a donated dead website, and then the medical writer of the Detroit Free Press, where I had been an executive, which was a daily newspaper at the time, wrote a front page story in the then women's section about my sort of riches to rags to dream big story, vision actually, to bring to fruition this nonprofit. So I would say that every time I became discouraged, something would happen. If I waited like 24 to 48 hours, some piece of encouragement would come into my life and I would keep going.
Yeah. And I mean, what ultimately, I mean, you talked about your vision. I mean, you've gone national, right? So you're in Michigan, but I mean, we're all across the US with the Pink Fund. I mean, did you ever anticipate that you would go that big?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm a big vision board person. And in 2007, I was at a breast cancer retreat and we had to put together a vision board. And I cut out the Ford Motor Company blue oval and put it on there, knowing that at the time that Ford was, to my knowledge, the largest corporate player in the breast space and working solely with Susan G. Komen. And I thought, well, it's kind of unlikely, but I'm putting it there. And 5 years later, Ford Motor Company, through their Warriors in Pink program, invited me in to pitch our value proposition. They picked us up as a charity partner and have provided about $1.2 million in support. And we're in the 9th year of that partnership. We've recently restricted the funding that they provide to the Pink Fund through the Warriors in Pink program to transportation assistance. So every dollar that we receive from Ford goes into making car payments for women and men in treatment for breast cancer. So that was the first start. And this year, we have another national partnership with Snap-on Tools. We're in the 6th year of that partnership. And then this year, a number of beauty brands reached out to us. One is Sigma Beauty, a big brush and eyeshadow and lipstick brand. And then Colleen Rothschild had a product called Breast Body Butter. And also then we work with Burst Oral Care, which is another big one. Often women in treatment for breast cancer, any kind of cancer, chemotherapy can affect your oral health. So we've expanded our partnerships that way, and it's really been awesome because they tell our brand story. So we don't spend any money on advertising. They share what we do, and then we receive portions of proceeds from the sale of their products.
That sounds pretty perfect. That's a great way to partner up, you know.
Uh-huh.
Absolutely. So how has now that you are national, would you like to go internationally? Like, what's your bigger plan?
Well, my bigger plan is planning for my succession in 5 years. Going nationally, you would be dealing with different healthcare systems, different employment legal regulations, and also obviously different money. We have no plan to go internationally, but we would be happy to share how we manage our mission with someone that would like to do that. We don't want to become a big, giant nonprofit. We really, we're small. We work out of donated office space since March. We've been working from home and seamlessly and without interruption have been able to deliver our mission. So when people, tell me they want to do what we're doing, I'm happy to share with them how we do it. The reality is that our support, while significant, patients really have to cobble together other resources. So we point them in other directions. So if they need medication support, like copay assistance, we send them off to the PAN Foundation. If they need other financial support, there's another national organization called Cancer Care, which is all cancers. So we try to do what we can to point them towards other organizations that can provide more support so they can get through treatment without experiencing a medically related bankruptcy or, as I said earlier, stopping treatment and going back to work.
Yeah. So how does somebody that is in need of that assistance, how do they seek it? Is it a matter of them filling out a form under the Pink Fund's website and then they just kind of cross their fingers and hope that their turn comes? Or
So
how does it all work?
They don't have to cross their fingers. What they do have to do is go to our website, which is thepinkfund.org, or sometimes their social worker, patient navigator, financial navigator will have information about us. But the beauty is that it's right on the website. So the patient has to answer 4 pre-qualifying questions, which are, they are actually in active treatment. That's one. By definition, that's mastectomy, chemotherapy, radiation. 2 is they have experienced a reduction in their personal household income. 3 is that they are at 500% or below of the federal poverty level, and that chart is right there on the website. So to give you an idea, for a household of 1 individual, that's 62,000, and a household of 4 is 125,000. That 500% above the federal poverty level allows us in some zip codes to loop in the middle class, which are often knocked out of social or charitable programs. And it also aligns with some of the medical copay assistance programs that run around 400 to 450% of federal poverty levels. So that way, if they need medication support, we can send them right over. And then the last one is they're not taking what's called an aromatase inhibitor, which is a drug that is recommended if you have estrogen receptive breast cancer. And it's to help with reducing your risk of recurrence. But it's a pill that you take every day for 5 to 10 years. And we don't count that as active treatment.
Okay.
So then the website, they answer those questions, they fill out the questionnaire. It's 6 pages, it's color coded with some icons. And then there are videos on the site to access for somebody who learns audio visually. But the next step on that is to really have a Spanish application. We've got that in the works, but we want to have a volunteer or somebody who can actually interact with people who are only Spanish speaking so that we can facilitate their ability to get help. So then once the application comes with the supporting documentation, which requires a copy of your recent tax returns that validates your household income, a copy of your driver's license, copies of the bills you want paid, an indication from your employer that you're on a part-time, full-time, maybe partial disability leave, and then your diagnosis date, your stage and grade of diagnosis, and your projected treatment plan and end date of treatment, which always can be adjusted based on how a patient reacts. So once that all comes in, you could be qualified and your bills could be paid within 30 to 45 days. But if your application arrives incomplete, then we have to go back and ask for data. And that really slows things up.
Do you have a total number of people that your program has, successfully benefited?
So we are now at we just had a committee meeting last Monday. We're at about 4.6 million in bills that we've paid out since we first paid out anything in 2007 when we were this tiny baby charity. And we're still considered a small charity. Our annual income is about $1.5 million, so we're still small.
Wow.
Last year, our fiscal year ending June 30th, 2020, we helped 336 women with 840,000 in financial support.
Wow, that's so insane. I mean, I know you said it seems small, but I don't know. It's incredible. The work you do is amazing, and the world is lucky to have. Our country is lucky to have somebody like you who's advocating for something so important. Can you tell our audience just where they could, if they would like to volunteer themselves or make a donation, where they could do that?
So they can go on the website. There's a Get Help tab, and that's if you'd like to apply. And then there's a Give Help tab, and that's if you'd like to donate. I really want to talk about a little bit about how people can not only make a direct donation. We're coming up on Giving Tuesday, December 1st. So that's kind of a big push on donating. But we have people all over the United States who hold events in our behalf. So right now there are two young men called the Pink Snowbirds, and they are riding their bikes they started in Maine, and then they're going down to Key West and then over to San Diego. Liam and Timmy are their names, and you can find them on Instagram under the Pink Snowbirds and follow them. In October, there was a barrel racing contest with horses. I don't do barrel racing, but they've been with us a number of years. And then in Rochester, where Kelly is from, every February, a group of people call themselves they ride bikini rally. So they ride snowmobiles in bikinis. I don't get it, but they raise money doing it. And then, there are people who have school events like pink outs, bake sales. It's just amazing how people want to help. And you can come up with anything you want. And that's also on the website. So you fill out a form that you'd like to have what we call a third-party event. And then we support those events often with social postings and those kinds of things to help increase the knowledge of what these people are doing and get more people involved.
That's awesome. I'll have to look out for the bikini ones. I haven't heard that. We're in Rochester too. So yeah, that'll be fun.
I'll send you the link. We've got some pictures.
Okay.
And what was really curious is I think this year will be the 4th year, 2021 will be the 4th year of the bikini rally. It turned out that we didn't know this, but one of the people in the rally was diagnosed and we helped her, but we did not know that until the next year. And I think that was why they got involved with us. I think that's why they started it. But that was really interesting.
Yeah, it sounds fun. I love it. Well, Molly, thank you so much for your time today and for just really advocating for such a great cause and the work you do. So thank you so much. I'm going to bring Kelly back to close us out with one more song. Kelly, what do you got?
I'm going to play a song from that musical I was talking about, the one about the Magritte paintings. So this one is called The Pleasure Principle, and if you look up the Pleasure Principle Rene Magritte, you can see the picture of it. It's a man in a kind of a suit, and he has just a glowing kind of fireball for a head. So with that, I'll just let you hear my interpretation of that.
Awesome.
There was an explosion and I caught up in the shrapnel. I still have a piece of you stuck under my skin. My head full of matchsticks, I always was destructive. I found a side to strike against, and I set you on fire. You collected tinder, but all I saw were cinders. I peered into the future, and I knew what I'd become. Ah, 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 and all I could see was a circle of light, and all I could see was a circle of light. With the pain came beauty, and I thought it was my duty. I threw myself upon the flames that licked the sky, and all I could see was a circle of light, and all I could see was a circle of light. Ah, ah, ah,
You just heard the beautiful music of Ms. Kelly Izzo Shapiro. Kelly, thank you again for sharing your music with us. And big thank you again to Molly McDonald of the Pink Fund. Make sure you like both their Facebook pages and check out their websites and see where you could also do your part in helping the Pink Fund and do your part in supporting Kelly's music. Today's theme was dedication. Dedication is a way of life. It's what fuels our passion and it's what drives us towards our purpose. It is representative of how serious we take our goals and how important we deem our relationship with ourselves. Without commitment, we rest on a dream and the hope that things will happen on its own. Dedication stems from the things we deem important. It's the life we breathe into our vision and the work we put into achieving our goals. There are no sick days and no obstacle ever too big to stand in our way. It's the taste of something bigger and the longing for it in full. As a wellness show, I always find it important to express the need to make room for self-care and for the important people in our lives. As a very passionate and dedicated person myself, I often have to remind myself of this because it's very easy to get swept away with the tasks we wish to fulfill. Setting time aside to experience and exercise life beyond your passion is a cause worth dedication in itself. Time is always of essence, especially when it comes to sharing it with the people we love most. So keep true to your causes in life and remain patient when things don't go as expected. And most of all, be good to yourselves. Thank you so much for tuning into our show today. We will be back here with a brand new show this Monday. Afternoon Cocktail is now available on all podcasting networks. So make sure you catch up on all 66 episodes before this one and keep spreading good energy to those around you. Have a great weekend.